Hello there! It's Friday, which means it's time. Once I just looked at your face on the camera there, and it threw me off because Anthony was making for the audio listener. Anthony was making a funny face then. It's Friday. Did I say that bit already? Which means it's time once again for the best movie podcast ever. It's the only movie podcast that offers objective and hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, Konrad, and with me as always, this show is his cross to bear. It's Anthony James.
Gucci! Hi, Konrad, how are you? Thought I'd get the teenage mode here.
Lovely. No movie has made me feel simultaneously more nostalgic and older than, or more nostalgic and more out of touch with the youth of today than the movie we're going to talk about in a minute. Really
I work with the youth of today, so I stayed in touch to a certain point, but I'm not going to be crazy and say that I'm fully in touch. I mean, TikTok is something that I have yet to go into, so
okay.
I'm
well,
a little bit more than you, but still.
Zoom is in the comments. Get in touch. Let Anthony know. Give Anthony like a test of his youth status because you've heard it here first.
I'll pass it.
Yeah, we're here to talk about Turning Red, the new Pixar movie. That's what we're doing today. And we're gonna have to do some preamble because there's been a whole bunch of stuff about this movie that has come up over the last couple of weeks. A whole bunch of chatter, not all of it good. So I say, let's talk about some gosh darn movies.
Let's do it.
Movies. One of them got made this week. Actually, a lot of them got made this week. But this one in particular is the one we're talking about. So, Turning Red. It's a Pixar movie. It's the latest Pixar movie in what feels like a long line to be released straight to Disney Plus. I think it's the third in a row, actually, after Soul and Luca, that didn't get theatrical releases.
Yeah.
They went straight to Disney Plus, and I think it's the first of two Pixar releases that are slated for this year, with Lightyear. I think still supposed to come out in 2022. We'll see if that gets a theatrical release or not. At present, it's still supposed to, but
I put my house on it, which I
say?
do. I don't own a house, so don't hold me to that.
Okay, well, you might do at some point soon.
We'll see. But I'm not making that comment. Once I own a house, I won't make that comment.
Okay, I think retroactively it affects houses that you purchase after the fact. So, Turning Red, we are going to talk about this movie, but I think something needs to be addressed first because I have seen, and I don't like doing this because I believe all
movies are movies.
Movies are movies, or any kind of work of creative art should be addressed, on its own terms. You can look at the context in which it's made, but you need to look at the thing that has been made and judge.
You're not arguing for freedom of speech, are you, Konrad?
I think freedom of speech, and you can quote me on this, listener, is a good thing. All right, I think I'm pro freedom of speech, but freedom of speech does not mean that people can engage in bad faith arguments about movies, which is what Turning Red has seen a bunch of on the internet in the last couple of weeks.
100%. I was saying that the people who are saying that this film shouldn't be made or shouldn't be aired, they're the ones who are complaining about freedom of speech.
Yes, no, absolutely. But it is partially that, but it's also just there's a lot of people who, when the main character of a movie and the sort of the dressing of the story it's telling isn't based in kind of a white Western perspective,
masculine perspective,
and a masculine perspective as well, absolutely. They pigeonhole it as a niche thing that they couldn't possibly identify with, which is outrageous to have that opinion in the year of our Lord 2022, as far as I'm concerned, because it's like, I'm going to say right now, Turning Red is not a complicated movie. It's about a young girl who has some issues with living up to her parents' expectations and has to balance the role that her parents see her occupying with the role that she wants to live in her life with her friends.
As she starts to go through changes due to puberty.
As she goes through puberty. It's not something that is unique to Chinese Canadian girls in the early 2000s, late 90s, when this movie is set. But there have been a number of critics who, for whatever reason, have chosen to adopt the line that because that is the lens through which we see these life experiences. It can't possibly speak to them as people who aren't from that background, which really annoyed me. It really riled me up.
I'm gonna give you, like, I don't have to say anything more than this, Conrad. But let me say that I'll just say this: I took a lot of I empathized a lot with the characters in The Sandlot, right? The Sandlot kids.
Yep.
Never played baseball in my life, not once. It's not part of my life.
I don't know how you did it.
The American pastime. I'm not American. Yeah. I've been to America once. I've enjoyed my time there, certain aspects of it.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I have partaken in. But having said that, I was able to pass that cultural boundary, Conrad.
I have never been an archaeologist in the 1930s going through tombs to find artifacts before the Nazis get their hands on it, but I can still find something in Indiana Jones to enjoy. Somehow, some way, I can do it. It's amazing.
Don't get me started on the Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
Don't get me. It just shouldn't be made.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who cares? It was 100 years ago.
I think there was also people, Conrad, arguing that it wasn't appropriate for children. What I say to those people, okay, now obviously it deals with puberty, it deals with women, girls starting to menstruate, it deals with all these issues. And you know what the thing is, 50% of the world goes through these things. If you want to shield it from 100% of the children, this is pretty bad. Like, at least the 50% who are going through it should be shown it. Yeah. I'm of the belief that the other 50% should also be educated on it as well. Having said that, Conrad, the thing is, I've had a lot of parents complaining about, my child shouldn't be able to watch this. This is inappropriate. This is blah blah blah. I will draw your attention to a little thing called a rating, Conrad. This film is rated 9+ on Disney Plus. 9+. If you are on the internet complaining that you don't want your 9+-year-old child watching this, then you are unfortunately not very progressive. I'll be very nice. Not very progressive. You, for some reason, want to stifle femininity. You want to stifle problems that women face. I don't know why. Maybe it's a heteronormativity within you. But what I'll say, Conrad, is if you are complaining and your child is less than 9, then you're just an idiot. I'm sorry, you are.
Yeah. But I mean, also, like, kids younger than 9 can learn about periods. It's not gonna, like.
Listen, my son is 3. My son is 3. He loves this film.
Yeah.
It's not inappropriate for any age, in my opinion. Having said that, maybe the monster movie it turns into is maybe a bit frightening for very small children. But my son loves it. But the rating is there, Conrad. So even if you were going to complain and say it's inappropriate for a 6-year-old, that's also what Disney thinks.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. And I will also say, when you said that 50% of the world goes through these problems, I'd like to take this moment to very, very tongue-in-cheek make an incredibly inappropriate joke and say 50% of the world goes through these problems and the other 50% have to put up with them. Am I right, fellas?
Oh, this is the thing. You are treading the line right now.
I'm weaving around the line because I know it's all done with irony in mind.
Yeah. This is the thing: is people listening to this film, listening to this podcast, who hated this film because of the puberty aspects of it, are now thinking to themselves, you know what? With that little sexist joke there, I think I'm on board with the film now.
A little jab. I'm keeping the sexists on board. That's how you hit that mainstream market, is by appealing to the nightmare people. That's my stance.
It's like what Will Smith said in the film Hitch, the classic Hitch.
I've never seen the movie Hitch.
You go 90%, let them come the other 10.
Okay, so I'm making the sexist come the other 10% by dangling out the sexist joke for them there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about Turning Red then. Let's talk about it as a movie and not worry about what other people are saying, because as it turns out, it's going to be a shock, I know, to hear this, but a lot of people on the internet are fucking stupid. It's sad, but it's true.
Notwithstanding, I'm not saying that we don't fall into that category either.
Oh, I am. When I just made a sexist joke, like immediately after you going on a very very well spoken defense of the themes of, like, you know, female awakening in this movie. So, you know, who am I to judge? This is a movie directed by Domi Shi, who has been part of the Pixar creative team for I think at least the last 10 years. She worked on Luca, Soul, on what she did, yeah. But she was part of the. So the way Pixar seems to
I know,
work.
They promote within, don't they?
Yeah, they have like a sort of team of creative heads, and they basically, when it comes time to make a new project, they get their creative heads to like pitch ideas, and then they kind of elevate one of them to the position of director, and then they'll go back down into sort of this creative committee to support each other in making them. And Domi Shi has worked on Toy Story 4, Onward, Soul, Luca. She's got a wonderful what's the word I'm looking for? Resume. Curriculum vitae, if you're European, or Latin, which would also be European. And it was written by Domi Shi with help from Julia Cho, both at Pixar, and it stars Rosalie Chiang, Sandra Oh, and I wrote down James Hong. It doesn't really star him, but I love when James Hong shows up in things. I'll always know, he's the old priest guy in this.
Yeah, he's like the all-knowing guy, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, I always know him as Lo Pan from Big Trouble in Little China, but he's been in so much stuff.
I've seen him in a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you will have done. And basically, it tells the story of a young girl called Mei Lin, she's a young Chinese Canadian girl whose family live in Toronto, and she discovers that she has inherited a family curse that when she experiences states of high emotion, it turns her into a literal giant red panda. And it's pretty obviously at least a partial metaphor for going through menstruation and puberty and becoming a woman. And the story is essentially that she has to sort of navigate her family life, including the expectations that her mum and dad, more her mum than her dad, but both of them to some extent, place on her, because she needs to go through a ritual that will remove the curse. But she also wants to enjoy her school life. And the ticking clock of this movie is, of course, that she needs to stay calm because she's got to keep everything contained until they can perform the ritual to end the curse.
Yeah.
But the boy band Four Town are coming to Toronto.
But there's five of them. There's five of them.
There is five of them, but they're called Four Town for whatever reason.
Music done by Billie Eilish and her brother Phineas.
Yes, it is. We'll get into
Phineas and Ferb fame.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I didn't know that until literally like a week ago that's who that is.
That's his name. Yeah, Phineas.
Yeah.
He's really he writes all the stuff with Billie Eilish, and then Billie Eilish goes on to do their brother and sister. I think that their parents might be very rich or very famous or something. So like from the age of like 10, they've had every bit of studio equipment they ever needed or something.
Yeah, I vaguely remember, not to diminish her success, because I certainly can do what she does or what they do even with all the money in the world. But I do remember reading something that I think Billie Eilish is from a fairly privileged background. But yes, so music by them. Four Town. Okay, I'm just going to start with Four Town because it's one of my favourite things about this movie. When you have a fictional band in your movie, it's very hard to make songs that sound like, oh, that's actually like a good pop song that I could see being a thing. I think they nail it. I think they nail it in this one. I was like, this Four Town, they're all right. I'd listen to a Four Town album.
Like, I'm not going to do the chanting because it'll come across as very inappropriate. But at the end, when they're chanting in Chinese with the song going as well, it just works so well. And it was like, this is...
Yeah, it's like the end of West Side Story where all the songs come together. It's like, oh, this is beautifully written. But yeah, so a Four Town, I love the thing... The things that I really like about Turning Red are the kind of... The way it's kind of like lovingly rendered from Domi Shi's memory, I think, and the relation, I mean, not just
all the details.
Yeah, there's sort of details, the nostalgic elements I really like, but I think it's more like how real her relationship with her friends feels, and how real her infatuation with Four Town feels. Like the way that they can, that there's like, it puts me back in mind of when I was like 15 years old. And do you remember the band Five? Very similar to Four Town.
If you're getting down, I do.
Oh,
I remember.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I want.
Who was your favorite? Who was your favorite?
Abs. I liked Abs.
Oh, Abs, he was good. Yeah, he was.
But
good.
I like Jay as well. Jay was the rap. Well, Jay and Abs would both rap, and so
I think Jay was my favorite actually. Yeah,
Jay was like Jay was the one who may have been like 30 when that band was.
He looked like he could go a few rounds. Jay, he definitely could.
He was like a brickie in his spare time, and then turned up to rap. But I remember a conversation I had with my friends because we were like, we were into some boy bands, and Five were a fairly cool one, and he described there's a member of Five called Scott, who no one will remember the name of because he was one of those members of the band. Every boy band has them.
One in the background.
One of the background guys. And my friend described Scott as having a sort of tangy voice. And this movie put me back in mind of those kind of discussions where you go into, in intricate detail, the singing styles and the mannerisms and the appearance of people that you couldn't possibly care about in adult life.
It's before like boy bands and girl bands were ruined by talent shows.
Well, I maybe we're just too old for it. I don't know if they were ruined.
Maybe, well, One Direction was really huge, weren't they? So
yeah,
they're still about. Boy bands are still about.
Absolutely, but the way that Domichi kind of realizes that infatuation with a musical act, I think, is perfect. I think it's perfectly done, and it really, really works for me. How did you find, like, I've already kind of said it's a pretty simple story this tells, to be honest. How did you find it in general? Like, what did you respond at all to it?
I did, yes. The thing, I really enjoyed this film, actually, and I think that the thing that surprised me was just how funny it is. It's a genuinely hilarious film, and I think part of maybe the reason why I was laughing as well, like, I found it even sort of more endearing and more funny, was I was watching it with my wife, and she couldn't stop laughing at this movie because, and I've talked to other women since then, apparently this is a perfect demonstration of what it's like to be a 12, 13-year-old girl. And this is unfortunately, in the year 2022, it's not actually something that I've seen much on screen. Yeah. Of just like, it's like what
it's because you can't possibly associate with it, Anthony.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Exactly. Exactly.
There's no way for you to understand these issues.
If it doesn't have Jonah Hill in it, I don't know what's going on.
And Seth Rogen.
Yeah, Seth Rogen. Yeah. There's only men I can think I am like them. But no, my point is that women seem to be finding some sort of some point of empathy here.
Yeah,
and I think that it's really interesting because I had a point there and I can't remember what it was, but yeah, but I thought it was really, really funny. I think that the main storyline of, like, the mother and the daughter worked well for me. I think that it sort of put me in mind a little bit, I suppose, as well, of Brave. They've done this story a little bit with Brave. I know that when I said that, I didn't even mean to say that there's a changing animal in that, because there is in Brave as well. But I didn't even mean that. I mean, this is a relationship in general.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting that, not to go back to it just for a split second, that everyone's complaining about the inappropriateness of the message of menstruation and things in this, whenever the point of the story is to have that May doesn't want to hide the fact that she has these things in her life when the rest of her older female relatives have been forced by society or by older members of their family to sort of pretend that they don't have this thing. I just thought that was an interesting point that I wanted to put out there. The whole point of the film is to criticize the attitude that people are having towards the film. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's not just as far as, like, menstruation goes, but as I think that's the bit that's perhaps more focused on the sort of Chinese Canadian upbringing, is like this idea of putting your family first and sort of subduing that more kind of free-spirited side of yourself. But I mean, this is, by all accounts, a pretty semi-biographical movie from Domichi's experience growing up, obviously without the red panda bit, or maybe with that. I don't know.
Maybe with that. Yeah. I mean, all I'll say, I've not laughed harder at a film in a while whenever she looked... I didn't see a trailer for this film. So when she looked out the window of the classroom, I've since seen a trailer since I've seen it.
And her mum
was behind the tree spying on her.
That was great, yeah.
Also, I will say as well, whenever her mum finds her, that she's, like, started drawing pictures of the guy in the shop, like the local store, which the guy with, like, the hat and the necklace, she starts drawing him, and then she's, like, under her bed, she's drawing him and sweating and stuff. Yeah. And I thought, and then whenever she finds the drawings, and the mum goes to the store and, like, says, "What have you been doing to my daughter?" That whole time, my wife Emma was just sitting there going, "This must be a dream sequence. This must be a dream sequence. There's no way this mum is doing this." I was like, Emma, this is happening. I don't know what to tell you. This is real. From here on out, in this film, this mother did this to this girl. That's traumatizing.
So, I'm glad you brought that up, I think, because so there's two things that I really want to mention, which kind of ruin my own credibility, but I think it's an important point to make, which is that about half an hour into this movie, I was not sure about it, because I was kind of like, okay, young girl doesn't really want to live up to family expectations, kind of wants to go her own way. We've done this dance before, Pixar. Come on, like I was a bit like, I like the way it's being presented, but I'm a bit bored by this, or not. No, but that's not right. I wasn't bored, but I was kind of like, I'm not really grabbed by this. Yeah. And then when the store clerk turned up, and I was like, oh, is this going to be like the inevitable, like kind of romance that's gonna, or like sort of semi-romance that's gonna happen? And then it just doesn't do that for a start. So it's like, not only is it not a romance, but it's like kind of played for laughs that because she's going through puberty and she's obviously becoming like this sort of bundle of hormones. Mm-hmm. She is infatuated. She becomes infatuated with this boy who is like, he's like a check, not to make fun of cashiers in convenience stores, but he's like an 18-year-old cashier in a convenience store who is like not at all eloquent or good looking. He's just a boy who happens to be close. Yeah. And it's like, okay, that's great. So they've just like completely pulled the rug out from under me with that. And then the thing that really brought me round on the kind of central relationships that are pretty well-worn territory for animation, definitely, and for Pixar even specifically, is, as you've kind of said, that those performances of like Rosalie Chiang as the lead Mei-Lin and Sandra Oh as her mum Ming, I thought they were great. I thought they were really, really funny, and they found a lot of sentimentality in their performances as well. And then the other thing I loved is just like, there's a real sense of like style to this movie that I haven't seen from Pixar before, where, just to give like an example, they'll be like walking down the street and then suddenly they'll like do a pose and the background will do like a kind of like anime style thing where it will turn into this like abstract painting, like a painting, like lots of colors and shapes. And I haven't really seen Pixar experiment with stuff like that before, but it really stuck out to me as like, oh, okay, there's some really interesting like aesthetic stuff you're going for here.
Yeah, I think they were like trying to sort of lean into the idea that the narrator of the film is a 12, 13-year-old girl. So therefore they had like the film opened with her talking to the camera, which doesn't happen in Pixar films as well.
No, not at all. Yeah.
So I think those stylistic things, they definitely were trying to channel the voice of the character they were telling. And based on, I watched a little documentary as well that was on Disney Plus about it. There's like a 50-minute making of documentary, and like a number of the key creatives in the top team for it, like the production designer is also Asian. I think she's Chinese, but I might be mistaken on that. But she's Asian American anyway, and so they're all drawing on these things, and I think to myself that I can really tell in the way that the film's made that they've been that girl. You know what I mean? They've been that girl, and therefore they're sort of speaking through their 13-year-old voice. You know, and I thought that was really well done. And it is a different way for Pixar. And maybe in the future, as they get sort of more new creatives on board for making films, we'll start to see more experimentation like that.
Yeah, I hope so. And just to confirm what you just said, so the creative team for this was actually all women. I can't remember how many exactly it was, but there were a significant number of like Asian Americans or Asian Canadians on the creative team as well. So I think you can absolutely feel those voices coming through in this, which again, I kind of hate doing this because it's not talking about the thing, it's talking about the kind of context around it. But I think it's important when people are kind of pushing back on that context for some reason to say this is why representation is important, because it allows good things to be made that wouldn't perhaps have otherwise been made, because we open up space for people to say like, oh well, this is my story, let me tell it to you in a way that appeals to everyone, regardless of what some idiot at Deadspin or whatever it was might think.
Yeah, and I suppose like that argument about representation is so stupid. Like,
it is. Yeah,
I know. Like, I don't understand. It's like I don't understand how people don't get the idea that if one type of person has dominated a space, that there has to be at the beginning of being more diverse a forcing of that diversity.
Yeah. We've been left up to our own devices for 100 years in movies now. We've proven we can't do it, folks. We've proven we're not going to do it. So,
And unfortunately, what these people don't realize is when you say, okay, we're making a film, we're going to give... It's not like they come up with the idea from the film, then they went, we got to find a Chinese director. Yeah. They gave the Chinese creative Canadian creative person, the director, a chance to come up with an idea.
Yeah.
And this is the idea they came up with. Now, the problem is that when people see that, they say, well, they've got to meet the Chinese quota. Unfortunately, with that, there is there is a built-in sort of underlying opinion there that they went to a lesser qualified person.
Yeah.
Whereas there's
this like fictional white man who would have got this job if only it weren't for these bloody criteria.
Whereas unfortunately they're making the opposite point because they're only letting one Chinese director have a film, then that is the best one. And therefore they are far better than any of the run-of-the-mill white men they would have got, because they would have been the 200th on the list. Well, they've got the one. You know what I mean?
And to say nothing of this idea that in order for representation to happen, it has to be of the very best quality. Like, that criteria doesn't exist for white guys. Like, you know, there are plenty of fucking shit movies made by white guys, I promise you.
How many white male directors are still making films when they haven't made a good... Tim Burton. We'll talk about him next week. We'll talk about him next week. Why is he still getting money for films? Why is he still getting money for films?
Absolutely. Just coasting along on the inertia of his career. Yeah. But yeah, so going back to Turning Red then. So I think the twin ticking clocks of this ritual coming round where her like old relatives and like the kind of the kind of squad of old relatives are summoned from somewhere else to come in for the ritual. Meanwhile, she's going through the kind of they do it really quickly, but the kind of friends have got to make some money to get tickets for the concert because they can't afford to. I
prefer to describe it the way they did. Hustling the panda.
Yeah, exactly. They're hustling the panda, which is just great. It's just great, and it gives the film like a real levity and a real pace. And then you said that this scene might be a bit scary for under nines, which I'm not a parent, so
no, very young children. I don't. Yeah. No, I don't think so. I think it's basically if your child is 3, judge it. My child thinks it's good. He's 3. He loves it.
Okay, but I mean I love the ending because it turns into like a kaiju movie for a little bit. There's just a straight up giant red panda fight at the end of this, and it's animated. I told you
she was big.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's great, and it's like animated like an episode of Dragon Ball Z with like power lines coming off. At the end of this movie, I was like, this kind of rips. To be honest, like this is the best. I'm trying to think of other Pixar movies that have had action sequences that are. I mean, it's not people like cutting each other in half like Dragon Ball Z, obviously, but it's like, there's some straight up fighting in it to a certain extent. And I'm trying to think of other Pixar movies that have really had to
Oh, fighting. Well, obviously Brave had like sword fighting. And,
I guess Brave did. Yeah.
What else? Yeah. There's been some rough and tumbles in Toy Story, I suppose, but over the years,
that's true. But they get into some scrapes, those boys.
Racing is also a version of a fight in Cars, of course.
I don't count it. Although I've never seen Cars because I for some reason it came out. And I assumed it wasn't Pixar, and I've never been able to shake from my head that it's like a second-rate animation as a result.
No. It like there's Pixar films, and then there's Cars. Cars is there's like watch the first one. If it does nothing for you, don't watch anymore. The second Cars film is the worst Pixar film of all time.
Okay, that's good. Is that the one with is it Antonio Banderas as like a spy car?
Yes, I think it is. They go to like Europe or something. Yeah.
That sounds right. Okay. Well, I'll continue to avoid both of those movies. Then sounds like I've made the right choice.
Well, there's 3 of them. Then Disney got into the cash cow as well, and they made a spin-off called Planes, which is not Pixar related. But
I don't think we'll be getting a sequel to this. I think
no. But what I'll say, right, is. There's a character in this film who I was up and down on, and then at the end he really sort of kicked into gear and was like, running around with the football field chalker, and that's the dad. Now the dad, he's a lovely cook. He's very, very romantically shot cooking scenes with him.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say, and this is something that happens quite a lot in films, and I suppose it's a specific choice here because they're sort of letting the women have the forefront. I would like to know, though, a lot of the time when I watch films based in a different culture than my own, a lot of the time when the women are the lead, the man is just sort of like a pudgy to the side, sort of puppy dog of a man.
Yeah.
All right.
You'll get a scene where he tells the daughter that he loves her, but that's like the only characterization they'll ever get in the whole movie.
Yeah, and this does happen in Western films too, in Western sort of cultural films, like one set in America with American people. It does happen there too, where you have like the mother is the main parent character, and then you have like a pudgy. Now, I'm not saying this in support of men and that men should have a bigger role. No way, no. Give the women.
Let's talk about men.
Give the women the space. But my point is that I think that this view of, and maybe it's just that the director had a really great relationship with the father. I did personally too, but my view of the father of the household, a lot of the time, middle-aged men, there's a lot more toxicity than a pudgy, cook who tells his daughter that he loves her. And in these films based on just like the relationship between the mum and the daughter, I understand that they don't want to go in and give the man too much. I understand that, but in like more, I would imagine that to be more realistic, there's more cases where the man is also being the horrible thing, and like having all this masculinity and being like whenever May goes to her mum and has this relationship with her mum, the dad's off like as a ball of anger and jealousy. Like a middle-aged man has a lot of emotion going on, and I just wonder if this film. That's why I want to know about other cultures. Like, are these what men are like? Because I feel to myself like I'm like, this film really does paint that it's the older women who are making her conceal herself. Yeah, and maybe that is the way in the culture that it goes. But in my head, I'm like, I know plenty of middle-aged men who would be all on the side of the mum here, and I'm just like, why does it paint the older women of families in a negative light when the men in the families get none of the badness? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I think in the context of Turning Red, I think the reasoning is that the parents are like, there's really only room for one proper parent relationship in this movie, and it's with her mum. And although she is kind of the source of that kind of toxic push to suppress her, what her personality actually is. I think if you explored it a bit further, it would be interesting for her dad, because her dad kind of just is always just seen as like a nice guy in this movie, when in reality there may have been some distance between them. He's always working or something like that. That meant that her mum had all the responsibility of doing the sort of parenting. Maybe that's why he's just kind of painted as a nice guy, because he wasn't there. But I do know what you mean.
Because in my experience, if the mum is ranting, now obviously this is not about Turning Red now, but in my experience, if the mum is ranting all the time and a very strong character and going on about and being very racist, even though the dad, in relationships that I've seen in the past where the dad is really nice and like very bubbly and like sort of the same characters in Turning Red, he holds those beliefs too. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the dad in this is put across as someone who is not like that at all. And it's a children's film and they were focusing on the mom and daughter, as you say, and I agree with that. But it's just something that in the context of the movies, I'd like to see the toxicity coming from both parents,
Yeah, no, I think I know what you mean. But yeah, I mean, I think that's probably everything that I wanted to say on this. I think it's... I enjoyed this movie more than I thought I was going to, even about halfway through, to be honest. Yeah. I was kind of expecting it to be another in a long line of Disney and Pixar animation where I've been like, that was okay without loving it. But so what if Mei Lin came in here and said, I'm going to turn into a giant red panda unless you rate this movie out of 5 stars, what would you give it?
I wouldn't rate it because I want to see the panda.
That's true. I subscribe to several Twitter accounts that just post pictures of red pandas every hour. And let me tell you, they're all very good follows. Before there's one more thing I want to say. I know, Konrad, I always do this to you. Sorry. There's one more thing I wanted to mention. He's done it again, folks.
Yeah, I've done it again. I'm going to delay the rating because there's one more thing I wanted to talk about, and it's high on my agenda of Turning Red talking points. And that is the character of Priya, who is the... I don't know if she's Indian American or Indian Canadian or Pakistani Canadian or where her heritage is from, but she's definitely West Asian. She has certain moments with another female character in this film. And I think it's very interesting because there's definitely hints every now and then, very off to the side, that she may be... Now, she also sort of is very into Four Town, so maybe there's... I'm not going to think about what her sexuality might be, but there's definitely sort of something going on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, this is what's interesting to me is that about a week before this came out, there was like a leak out of Pixar saying that Disney was flat out refusing to allow them to include scenes of, obvious scenes of heterosexual relationships.
Of homosexual relationships, you mean?
Oh, sorry, yes, homosexual relationships, yeah. Oh, sorry, Latin isn't my forte. So homosexual relationships. So this was leaked out of Pixar about a week before this film came out, and I think this is why. This is my crazy theory. I think there was more to that little storyline with Priya and that girl. Maybe not a huge amount, but maybe just a couple of seconds here and there to show us a bit more of what she was thinking. And I think they were told to cut it out last minute. That's what I think happened.
I think you're absolutely right. I think normally I try kind of shy away from speculation like this, but with what's going on at Disney at the moment, with the amount of people, LGBTQ people and people who support them, who are now coming out and saying, they made us cut this stuff from X, Y, and Z. There's a story that just leaked about a same-sex kiss that was forcibly cut and has now been reinstated in Lightyear. I almost called it Skywalker then. That would have been a Freudian slip. There's so much evidence. Yeah, that's not the same thing. But there's so much evidence of Disney sticking their hands into the creative process to try and turn the knobs I've talked about this a lot, and I don't want to end this on a down note. We will go back to the rating in a second. But there's so much evidence of Disney turning their sort of performative, representational knob just enough. Like, we'll have a gay character, but they'll be in the background, or they won't really have any speaking parts, or they won't really have a proper storyline. But they're there, and we can claim that that we're doing great. But when the rubber meets the road, and it's time for a creative studio like Pixar, who is supposed to have autonomy, to say we're going to have a gay character, or we're going to have a bi character, or we're going to have a non-cis character, or whatever they want to do, Disney get involved and say, nah, we're not doing that, that's too hot a topic, don't tone it down a bit. And I think
it's so interesting to me. Why can't they look at the past? Do you know how much fuss is made about all these companies that Star Trek had the first interracial kiss, and all this sort of thing? Can they not see that history is going to look poorly on these decisions they're making?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, it's very strange.
It's incredible. It's just completely backwards. It's completely backwards, and the most insulting thing about it is that they pretend to be at the forefront of these sort of progressive social issues, when in reality they are an albatross around the neck of these issues. They drag them down with their needless ties to these conservative parties that are like, let's pretend gay people don't exist. And it's just...
Well, I think as well, there has to be something said for... I don't know perfectly what countries are like what. I've never been to China. I've never been to India. I've never been to any countries like this. But in the news all the time now is things like saying Disney kowtowing to the Chinese market, right?
Yeah.
Now, which is really interesting to me based on the themes of this film and the culture of this film. I don't know. I think that's a cop-out, saying that Disney is just kowtowing to the market and wants it cut because of that. I think that is a cop-out, which is going to continue to lead to them making the decision. The fact is, you need to call them out, because if they are doing something which is stopping the progression of representation and also just the normalization of homosexual relationships, if they are stopping that, then they are committing homophobic acts. And I don't care if it's because they want more money because China's going to give them more money. They are the one committing that act. They're the one cutting it. So therefore, they should get the ire, not China.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Hopefully, China will eventually change. I'm going to say as well, I don't actually know anything about China.
No, I don't know enough about what China's.
Yeah, that's just what people are saying. That's just what
Yeah.
people are saying, and they're sort of giving the executives at Disney the out by saying, "Oh, it's just about money. Just about money. Yeah. No, it doesn't. I don't care if it's just about money. They're the one who are committing the act of cutting these things. You know?
Yeah, I mean, money. This idea that something being more profitable makes it inherently right is one I see mentioned a lot, and it's nonsense. Like, frankly, if you feel the need to censor something about your story, or not even your story, but the stories that the people who work for you want to tell, because it represents a part of normal everyday human life that you don't happen to want represented, then frankly, fuck you. That's my stance with it. Like, make less money and tell the stories that represent actual human people, rather than pretending that certain subsections, whether it be gender or sexuality based or whatever, don't exist. Because, as you've said very, very rightly, history will not look kindly on the people who are making these decisions now, and I think Bob Chapek and his ilk may not be long, or hopefully may not be long for this world working for Disney, because the political shitstorm, or not political but social shitstorm, that this has drummed up is significant. But I don't want to end on a dour note, because I did really enjoy this movie, and I think
it was great.
It's a good movie in its own right. Even if you ignore the sort of the context of everything that's going on around it, it's just a good film, and it's also important for those reasons as well. So, gun to your head, Red Panda holding a gun to your head. What are you rating Turning Red?
All right, before I say this,
he's done it again.
I've done it, but I am rating it though. It's relevant to the rating.
Yeah, go on.
I have a different scale in my head for children's films. Okay. Now,
this is unheard of.
It's not really, but I mean, like, sort of, I rate things based on genre as well as just how you know what I mean. It's all in one package. I'm going to give it a 4-star. And I'm, I thought I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really sort of realistic to the tones it was trying to hit. I enjoyed the main relationships within the film, and I thought it was hilarious. I really did. And also, I think Pixar, we didn't really mention it, but Pixar's rendering and like actual style that they're going for in terms of the actual the look of the characters and like the sort of just like the tangibility of the world. I just loved it. The
animation on that fur. I remember when like Monsters Inc. came out and everyone was like, look at that fur. And now we're at this level where it's just like, that looks like a real red panda to me. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. It's really good. And they're just... Pixar's always been a company. I know they are a massive corporation and they have the same sways as other corporations, but I've always had a bit of a soft spot for them. I have. And, they are... usually you say something is a tumor of something else. It's almost like they are like a good, healthy spot within the tumor that is Disney. And if only they could break free, the world would be a better place.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, and I agree with your rating as well. Like this was tending towards a 3-star around about the half-hour mark for me, because I was like, this is good and competently done, but it's kind of not doing anything that I haven't already seen before. But the strength of those central performances by Rosalie Chiang and Sandra Oh, the animation, the kind of artistic flair, and just the love for the setting and the story made it a 4-star for me, I think. So that is going to do it for us this week on the Best Movie Podcast Ever, which leads us to answer one simple question, as we always do, and that is, Anthony, what's your favourite movie this week?
I haven't done it for a while. I'm going to go Turning Red.
You're going to go what? What did you just say then?
Turning Red.
Oh, Turning Red. Okay.
The film we're talking about.
The reason that confused me was because you said it like there was an apostrophe at the end of turning rather than a G.
Turning red.
Turning red. And I was like,
red.
Wait, what? It sounds like a kind of buddy cop movie from the 80s starring Burt Reynolds or something. Turn and Red. My favorite movie is Dragon Ball Z Resurrection F. I watched that fairly recently. It's pretty good. Thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. Check out links to their stuff down in the description below. And thank you to you for listening or watching. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. We're the Culture Cave on YouTube, and we're the Best Movie Podcast Ever on podcasting apps. Get involved in the comments. Let us know what you thought of Turning Red or whatever you watched this week, and we will see you at same time, same place next week.
I've never met nobody like you. Had friends and I've had buddies. It's true.